Welcome to the Love What You Do podcast. I'm Kelly Dugan, former HR executive turned personal brand expert and career coach. And I'm here each episode sharing strategies to help you uncover your unique value, leverage your personal brand, and take action to create a career you love. Thank you so much for coming back to the Love What You Do podcast today. We are so excited to welcome a very special guest. We have one of my great friends with us here today, Claire Harding. Claire is not only an incredible learning and development professional, of which we're going to dive into hearing all about her career today, but she is also a mom of 3 little boys. We had the opportunity, Claire, to meet and work together at WWE and just were a whole different type of tag team there. And that's where we became really not only colleagues, but great friends as well. And I'm so excited to dive into your career story, and hopefully you have some advice for working mothers like myself who are going to be very soon mothers. I'd love to hear your perspective on all things career, loving what you do, motherhood, because by the time this comes out, God willing, I will have my little one here with me already. So welcome to the podcast, Claire.
Thank you. I'm very excited to join you and also very excited for you and all that is ahead.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. And Claire, I've shared this with you before, but you are one of my favorite working mom role models because I think you have just done such an incredible job of balancing a real passion in what you do and a passion for motherhood, and being able to bring those things together has been so inspiring to me when I think about what I've always wanted my future to look like with a family and a career that I'm so passionate about. So why don't we start with talking about your career journey and just how you've gotten where you are today as a director of learning and development?
Yeah. Oh, goodness. That's very kind of you. Certainly has been a work of trial and error over the last close to a decade. I guess probably, yeah, I've been at least pregnant and along for the journey for almost a decade
Oh my gosh.
now. So yeah, my path to learning and development was not necessarily linear. I went to college for city and regional planning. So I feel
I
like
don't think I probably knew that at some point, but I did not realize that. Oh my
oh yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
Yeah. And this is
Um,
why what you majored in college doesn't define what you do with your career path.
yeah, certainly it gave me a very valuable skill set, but that I use every day, but not necessarily in the profession I thought I would be in coming out of college. Um, I think what put me on the path to learning and development was my first experience, professional experience out of college. I applied to and participated in a program that was super popular around that time called Teach for America. So, Teach for America is a program that takes folks who did not major in education and don't necessarily have an education background and puts them on a quick ramp up to be a classroom teacher. So, a very short window of training, and then you go into a classroom and you're the teacher of record there. So that is my very first foray into teaching and learning was in a classroom teaching 6-year-olds.
Oh my gosh.
And I still say that it was the hardest job I had. Close to, I guess, close to 20 years later, I would still mark that one as the hardest, but one that I learned an incredible amount from.
Mm.
Following being in the classroom directly, I started working for Teach for America, and I was with them for close to 10 years in a really fast-paced environment, always on kind of the cutting edge of learning. We were always trying to think about ways to train our teachers better, to have students, have more positive learning experiences. Really, the spirit there was one of continual learning and improvement. And that really, I think, was a really good fit for me. I love the opportunities to build things, think critically about structures, processes, and how we improve them. So I learned a whole lot while I was there. And it was actually in the last role I had there where I welcomed my first child. I feel like I was very thoughtful. I spread out all three of my children across three employers. So nobody
There
had
you
to
go.
take three maternity leaves from me. Um, but I had my first baby there, and it was a really positive experience for me. Um, it was one, that I actually, in thinking about this topic, I was like, I actually feel like I've lost a little bit of memory of like where I was at mentally. I do know I was a little burned out, you
Yeah.
might say. Uh, the environment, while it was incredibly beneficial for everything I learned along the way, it certainly was intense.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most intense periods of time at Teach for America, as you can imagine, is right before school starts. So those months of July, August, September are really tough because we're trying to do everything we can to get the teachers that we're working with ready for the start of school and make sure they have everything that they need. And um, I was due August 6th.
Oh my goodness.
um, and if I'm being honest, some of like the memories that I have of anticipating maternity leave, I was like secretly very happy. I was like, oh, finally, I have like a meaningful enough excuse to, uh, you know, tone down my professional pursuits. Like it felt like
Yeah.
finally it wasn't just like, oh God, this is really hard and I, want to take vacation. It was like, no, I'm having a baby. So this is like a real legitimate reason that I can take
Take my
time
foot
off.
off the gas. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think I sort of went into maternity leave with that mindset. Um, and I will say, I think I got pretty lucky. My first baby he was a very good baby. He was probably the best in the baby phase of any of
Yeah.
them. Um, so it was, again, I'm probably not recalling all the details as they truly were, but from where I am now, I recall, it being really lovely. And, the time of year I had him, it was, I was on maternity leave August, September, and October, which for the area that we are in is like just a beautiful time of year. So like
Oh yeah.
go on walks. And I was lucky enough to have a close friend who was on maternity leave at the same time. And we would meet up and take the babies on walks. And so it actually, for me, that first experience was a little bit of a breather. I know, certainly I'm not promoting the idea that maternity leave is a vacation. It is not by
Yeah.
any means. Um, but for me, it was a chance to slow down
Yeah.
professionally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I transitioned. I forget how old he was. He was probably 1 or 1.5 when there was just a lot of change happening in my current role. I'd felt like I'd really attained a professional level there that I could move on, and maybe was looking for something a little bit uh, less intense.
Hmm.
And I moved on to a really small nonprofit in the area. Um, I moved with every intention of wanting to have another baby. I remember like asking about that in the interview and trying to be very forthcoming that, that was in my plans. I wasn't pregnant at the time or anything like that, but I remember that being a factor in my decision making was how do I, you know,
Hmm.
will this benefit exist? Teach for America, for the time it was a good maternity leave. I wanted something comparable. So I spent a couple of years there. That's where I had my second baby. So next employer took another maternity leave. Um, that it was a really phenomenal program that I worked for, but I realized quickly that I loved being in a bigger organization where there was more opportunity for learning, more opportunity for collaboration. And so that's when I made the switch into the corporate world and where our paths crossed,
Yes.
and transitioned to working in the corporate space in learning and development for WWE. And yeah, a few years in there, I welcomed my third. Um,
Yeah. Very
that's,
nice.
that's where I've been.
Yeah. And take me back to that moment when you started with Teach for America, because I think that that's a really pivotal switch that you made from the plan you thought you were going to have, and that seems to have really triggered a chain reaction to an entirely different career path that you've ended up following. Um, did you have an inkling that that was going to happen at the time, or did you think Teach for America was going to be a stop on a longer journey?
Gosh, that's a great question. I don't know if I was thinking that far ahead.
Yeah.
Um, I realize in retrospect, when I think about my college experience, I don't know that I really fully understood the breadth of professional possibilities that were out there.
Yeah.
Um, my background, my parents are, my mom's a nurse, my dad did labor union organizing,
Mhm.
and that was kind of their circle. And I don't think I fully understood the expanse of things you could do as a professional. And so, I was very motivated in college and knew things in the social sector were interesting to me. So Teach for America was a very natural fit there.
Mhm.
It was a program that I really believed in terms of equity in education, and that was a very meaningful role for me.
Mhm.
Um, the transition into learning and development on the corporate side, I think, is the unexpected twist.
Yeah.
Because I got into teaching because of some social beliefs I had,
Mhm.
really that, purpose of the organization. Whereas now I'm not necessarily working for a mission driven, I'm working
Mhm.
in the corporate sector, but I'm tapping into what I hope everybody, even in a corporate setting, gets to experience at work, which is that they have a job they love, that they feel challenged and supported. Because I feel like I've been able to find that in my professional journey. And
Mhm.
so through learning and development and coaching and things that an employer can provide for their employees, like that's my hope, that I can contribute that to whatever professional environment I'm in.
Oh, I love that. And I love that you have found this way to take the kernel of what you loved of teaching and apply it in so many different environments and then end up in more of this corporate space. But your why is still there because it's pretty much the same reason you liked working for Teach for America. It sounds like that has stayed with you even though the environments have shifted drastically.
Yeah, and I think, for me, my why has probably shifted over time a bit and shifted depending on the environment I'm in. But, you know, the topic of like how do you balance motherhood and a career, I have no answers. Like that's like I'm talking to you not with answers, but just with experiences. And I think for me, one of the things I lean on is that I do really love what I do.
Mhm.
And I want to keep doing that. I enjoy the opportunity to work with the colleagues I work with and work on projects that are new and stretch me and make me feel like I'm learning and growing all the time. Like, that's definitely one of my um, core things that I look for in a role
Mhm.
is the ability to do that. Um, and I think that's what has allowed me to try to balance these two experiences, is because I try to approach my work from a place of purpose and like I like helping people, and at the core of what I do, that is still there.
I really love that because I think one of the things that has been a unique experience for me being pregnant, and even in, as you know, Claire, on a 3-year journey of trying to get to the point of being bringing a baby into the world. It's been a constant thought of on my mind of like, okay, how is everything going to shift and change when I get to the point of being a mother? And I think one of the things for me that I've really had to face it and understand of is I've been a very career driven person, and I so relate to what you mentioned about kind of preparing for that first maternity leave and thinking through like, oh, I finally have something big enough to step away. And what I take from that, and tell me if this resonates with how you feel. It's not that like anybody has ever tied me to my work. It's from me. Like it
Yeah.
takes something that big for me to be like, you know what? Like this is more important. This is where I'm going to shift my focus. And for someone who's really career driven, and then feeling this like pull to something different, it's a life changing experience, I'm finding. And I haven't even gotten to the motherhood piece of this yet, but even just deciding that that's how you want to move forward, and becoming pregnant, and knowing that this is coming, I can definitely resonate to what you shared there around like, wow, yeah, this is the first thing that's been big enough that I want to prioritize it, you know, even for over my career for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. My mom, I remember one time, my mom always has great advice.
Yeah.
I was like really upset about something that had happened at work. Like I don't even remember what it was, which just goes to show you. But I was really upset, and I was like crying to her, and she's like, "You need a hobby." And I remember her saying that basically she was like, all your eggs are in your work basket. So when work goes sideways for you, like you don't have that balanced with other pursuits. And that was, I think, true. I mean, I don't have any significant hobbies.
I'll
Um,
be the first to tell you I don't have hobbies.
and exactly. Um, and that was like self-imposed, right? Like I
Yeah.
wanted to be successful at work. I wanted to have this, um, so in Strengths Finder, whatever, one of my top strengths, which is definitely a double-edged sword, is responsibility, right? Like, so I want to be perceived as reliable, helpful, um, all these kind of words that to me, somebody proves that by being always available. And,
Mhm.
I fed into that for sure. And very much, yeah, the having a child felt like the first time I could like let myself off the hook or like not impose that
Mhm.
uh, on myself. Cause I was like, no, this is like, and I will say like, now I think one of the questions people ask working moms a lot is like, how do you balance it? I'm like, well, like my kids' daycare closes at 5:30. Like I will be fined if I don't pick them up at 5:30. Like
Yeah.
I have to leave work. Like there's no choice. There's no like, oh, I could stay and finish this project. I can't. I have to go
Yeah.
home. They have to be picked up, they have to be fed, they have to be bathed, they have to be put to bed. Um and so some of that is actually, I feel like, less existential of like, how do you balance it, but more it's just the day-to-day reality that
Mhm.
they need to be taken care of. And for me, I think my approach, and I don't think this was like an intentional or thoughtful approach, but I think what I've sort of the groove I find myself in is being comfortable that like sometimes work gets prioritized, right? Like I was just
Mhm.
talking to you, I have a lot of things that I want to work on, and I'm probably going to ask my husband, like, hey, can we work something? Sunday I want to go to the library and work all day. Not all day,
Mhm.
but some of the day.
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm going to put time for work ahead of time with my kids. And sometimes I'm going to put time with my kids ahead of work. Like this afternoon, I am going into my kindergartner's class to do like a craft project. Like Like, so I think
So
that's
much fun.
been for me what has allowed me to feel fulfilled
Yeah.
in both categories.
And so, how have you navigated finding environments that support those priorities for you?
Uh, I think a lot of it was luck. Like, um, and you know, at Teach for America, that was my first experience going into motherhood. My manager at the time there was a mom herself, and I think for me was really a role model. She was both a wonderful manager and team leader and a wonderful mom to her kids. Um, and that I think is probably why I didn't go into my maternity leave with that much fear.
Mhm.
I actually think, like, even though the environment at WWE was supportive, like there were a lot of other moms on our team. I actually think that was probably the maternity leave I was most worried about. And when I think back, so at Teach for America, I'd kind of reached a role that was more senior in the organization. I felt like I'd kind of accomplished a lot of my professional goals at Teach for America.
Mhm.
Um, and then when I pivoted into the corporate sector, I kind of had to take a step back. I shifted into maybe a more junior role than I had been in earlier parts of my career. And so when I had my last baby, I actually was really still trying to
Accomplish.
accomplish professional goals I when I had my first baby, I'd been at that organization for like 8 years at that point. I'd proven myself
Mhm.
to be reliable. Whereas at WWE, I still wanted to make sure that it was visible to everyone that I could still be reliable and accountable and responsible, um, even having that. Now, I for all of my children, I never worked over maternity leave. Like that was, I've heard stories of people being like, oh, like my boss would message me.
Oh my
Like
gosh.
that's kind
Yeah.
of wild to me. I was very fortunate to never have that pressure to be on.
Mhm.
I fully took my maternity leave for myself and my kids.
Yeah.
So that was really, I recognize that that's not the experience that everybody does have, but
Mhm.
everybody should have that. Like there,
Yeah.
that
It's
is a
important time.
protected time for a reason. And right now, I'm at an employer that is continually expanding their parental leaves and making sure that there's equity in parental leave for different parents. So it's been interesting also to watch the shift in parental leave policies over the last decade.
Oh yeah. There's been so much change in that field in particular. But when you shared your feelings around kind of going into your third maternity leave and being at a completely different point in your career versus your first two maternity leave experiences, I think that is something a lot of women probably relate to around feeling there's no perfect time, right? And when you're at a point where you are really like accelerating with your career and also feeling the drive to motherhood and wanting both things simultaneously, you know, how did you manage that internal pressure and stress during that time? And um like what was that experience like for you?
Yeah, I think I'm still like working through that very much. Uh, Part of it was the environment, but I like experienced a lot of promotions early in my career. So I was promoted quickly. I took on lots of responsibility quickly. Um, was leading teams and I enjoyed that. I liked, like I said, like I'm very driven by learning new things. I liked the continuous challenge of filling bigger roles and learning how to do things in a new way. Um, and when I think about the last 10 years, like if you look at my titles, like I've mostly been stagnant for, and stagnant, maybe I shouldn't use the word stagnant. I'll use steady.
Oh,
Um,
I
for,
love that reframe.
for the
Yeah.
last, 5 years. And maybe not intentionally, but I think just a matter of the realities, I've been okay with that.
Mhm.
And I think that my 25-year-old self probably would not have been as okay with that. But I'm okay with it because it's what's necessary for me to be able to balance both things.
Yeah.
Um, and I think everybody has to find what works for them. Some like I would be lying if I didn't say sometimes I wish my career was moving faster and that I, had ascended into higher levels of leadership by this point in my career. I also sometimes I'm like, I wish I didn't have to go to work today and that I could go grocery shopping not at 9:30 at night, but I could go grocery shopping at 11 a.m. So I feel the pulls in both directions, and for me, I
Mhm.
think it has been just about finding that middle ground. I go back to when we were at WWE, we hosted a panel of women leaders at WWE speaking to our, um, women's group. And I remember one of the panelists saying basically like that there are times in your career that you're going to put on the gas and times you might take your foot off. I don't think I'm taking my foot off, but I am hopeful that, maybe in 5, 10 years when my kids are fully out of diapers, getting themselves dressed, brushing their teeth,
Yeah.
moving into the phase where they probably don't want a whole lot to do with me. Um, Maybe I do take on a bigger role, and have that. But I right now I'm not in a rush to
Yeah.
get there. I feel lucky to be in a role that is still very professionally fulfilling and allows me to not feel like I'm shortchanging my kids by any stretch of the imagination.
I absolutely love that perspective because I mean there's a reason that this podcast is called Love What You Do and not Love Your Job because there's so many pieces of what we do every day and it's impossible to show up in every aspect 100%. That's 5,000%, right? We don't have 5,000%. But I think one of the things that I am training my mindset for as I move forward is like I have to just give my life 100%, and that's going to mean different things every single day, right? Like, and I think you have really walked that walk in a really amazing way, and I thank you for just sharing that perspective and that vulnerability around. It's not an easy thing to navigate, but it's a really fulfilling thing to navigate at the same time.
I'm going to remember that statement when I am feeling in those moments of frustration because I should. I really like that perspective of looking at the totality of what you do.
Yeah.
I certainly still sometimes find myself equating my value to my professional role. I really like that. Love what you do. Um,
There, because
I
you
think
do a lot, my friend. Like you
a
do
lot more.
so much. Yeah, you know. I know.
Oh,
I do
sure.
think
Oh, sure.
that is that's again, that's a mindset that I have that I'm praying I'm able to uphold and keep when I'm in the trenches, right, of motherhood and why it's so good to have role models like you and the amazing women I've gotten to work with over the years who are mothers and all have had very different experiences, but at the same time, I think the core of all of these experiences are very similar. I think we share very unique perspectives of what the future looks like, right? So, what advice do you have for, someone who might be getting ready to start their first maternity leave and or maybe preparing to re-enter after a maternity leave, as a veteran at this point, what advice would you give?
Great question. I think I think you have a great head on your shoulders to navigate it. And I think you've created something really special for you that like you're walking into motherhood in a professional pursuit that you've worked really hard for as well. So I think that's really exciting. I would say I feel like maybe the best advice is to do it your own way. Like um, to think about what matters most to you and feel okay leaning into that aside from the noise that I think a lot of times we get from social media or the influencing foray of people
Yes.
who have opinions about what does being a working mother look like, what does being a stay-at-home mother look like, and all those different perceptions. But I think for me, it's been about what works for me and what I want. I want a career. I want to also be a really present mom who I don't get my kids off the bus every day, but I get them off the bus some days. And for me, that's a really nice balance. Um, and I also know that like I wanted my kids to have a working mom. I that's what I had growing up, and I think it taught me some good lessons along the way. And so for each of us finding what it is that gives us fulfillment and trying to create that in our professional lives. And I realize that, some people, depending on your current job or where you find yourself, you don't always have the ability to lean into that. But I think trying within what's in your sphere of influence to create what is meaningful to you. And if that means, shifting or changing roles or um, I think that's important. So I feel like I feel like you've set that path in motion for yourself a bit of knowing how much time you want to be able to devote to being there for your children and being a mom. I feel like you've actually set your plan in motion already, which is really cool and exciting to watch. So yeah, and coming back from maternity leave, there's you just
It's
gotta
a ride.
yeah, you just gotta do it. Like I remember I don't remember again. I feel like I just have these like very specific core memories. I remember in my first job or my first maternity leave coming back, I was pumping the like glamorous world of
Yes,
pumping milk,
navigating. Yeah.
pumping milk in a like side office.
Yeah.
And at the time, there were these Medela pumps. And I lived about an hour away from where I worked.
Wow.
So I would drop my son off at daycare, I would get in the car and I would drive. And Medela at the time was the pump I used, and it had probably like six parts. And one of them was this little part that was about this big. It's like the little white rubber flange. The pump doesn't work without this little tiny
Oh
thing.
my gosh.
And wouldn't you know, I forgot it. Like, I left it at home. And I just like, that's like one of these like memories I have of being like, what? And I had to go home.
Oh
I had
my
to be
gosh.
like, I,
That
I
one little flange took you down for the
will
day.
burst here. Um, and I had to go home and drive home based on one stupid little piece of quarter-inch rubber that I had not brought with me that day. Um, so it's stuff like that. Like now I can laugh at it.
I'm sure that was there's probably not a ton of laughing on that drive home though.
Yeah, no, just like pure annoyance, right? Like having to take whatever meeting I was supposed to be in and reschedule it or,
Yeah.
all that good stuff.
But that is such a perfect example of like the lack of control we actually have over all things, right? Like, and I think, I mean, I'm expecting that motherhood is that on steroids, right? Like, and we do our best. But there's just, as my grandmother used to say, circumstances alter cases, right? Like, you're like, okay, we're changing plans now over something that really annoys me.
It's yes, I say that to my kids. This is actually a line that I got from a close friend from college. We were talking about just like it's hard. Like it's hard now. Like in the mornings, I'm trying to get three small children ready and out the door. Certainly, my physical appearance, what I show up to work looking like, has changed. That's another podcast in itself, but like trying to get everything ready and together. And she uses a line with her kids that I've tried to adopt of like, I'm doing my best. So I try to tell my kids that, right? Because in the morning they'll be like, where's my shoe? Where's my, who knows? Like
Yeah.
anything you name it that they're looking for, 30 seconds before the bus is coming down the street. Um, and I say, I'm doing my best. I'm one person and I'm doing my best because that's some of that is internal talk, right?
Yeah.
To tell myself I'm doing my best, but also to model for them, right? Like all we can ever do is our best.
Oh my
So
gosh, Claire, I love
finding
that.
finding the humor in it. Um, I just mentioning the bus. I'll recall my very first day home from the hospital with Thomas. Thomas is our third. Uh, the bus stops right outside our house. Like literally, the bus stop is our driveway. My two older children missed the bus that day. Like,
Oh
like,
no.
like it. It wasn't that hard to get them to the bus stop, uh, and you just like like luckily I had a partner who had parental leave. The two of us still could not get the other two. I wasn't alone in trying to get them out to the bus, and just finding the humor in it. And yeah, I think telling myself I'm always just trying to do my best, and finding that balance, but also modeling for my kids. Like, I don't, they had to wear dirty clothes to school because I didn't do the laundry last night. Because you know what I did instead? I made a PowerPoint. Like, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
those trade-offs and they're like, oh, again? You didn't do the laundry again? I was like, no, didn't get to it. Like,
Yeah.
sorry. Go
Yeah.
if you want to wear those. They wear
Yeah.
these leggings that they love. If you want to wear those, you got to grab them out of the
Got it.
laundry bin. Like,
Yeah.
sorry. But I'm okay with that because I actually think those are some lessons that I want them to have.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of the parenting that works for me
Yeah.
right now.
Some of my favorite childhood memories and like most poignant childhood memories, and my mom will laugh at this, are of like those frenetic mornings before school of like the where you're just everyone is doing their best to get out the door. And just some of the funniest family stories that I have are of those mornings of like my mom having to drive me to the bus stop because that was not that far. We lived in a neighborhood, like all of those little things, and like racing to catch that bus and making it. And just I often, as I'm kind of moving into this era of motherhood, just think about those little moments that probably as the mom feel so stressful, but like when you think back on them as the kid, it's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's um it's a journey and you take it day by day. And I think maybe the other piece of advice is like when we were initially talking about this podcast, it was like, like advice. And I was like, oh, I feel like I didn't really have a plan. And I actually think that maybe that was the best way to do it. I didn't have a plan. I didn't have a plan for how I was going to come back from maternity leave. I didn't have a birth plan. Like, and I'm a planner. Like, so I feel like some people hear that and they're like, oh yeah, like I'm a planner. I like a plan. But I've been really okay letting things come as they are. I mean, okay. Some days better than others. But
That's the
overall,
best though. And like two things that I'm taking away from this podcast conversation, Claire, is number one, doing it your way, right? And I think that for I completely resonate. Like you can have the best laid plans and God's going to work it out his own way anyway. So like there's only so many plans I think you can have going into something this life-changing. But also the choices that you make in motherhood, in your career, in all things are your choices to make. And once you've made that choice and you feel like you've made it in an authentic way, putting those blinders on and just like keep moving forward and being really confident in that you're doing the thing that's important to you and someone else is going to do the thing that's important to them, and trying not to compare, I think is that. And I'm doing my best. I'm stealing that line. I'm stealing that line now because let me tell you, being 30, almost 8 weeks pregnant, walking around like sometimes just getting makeup on is doing my best that day.
you beat me.
Oh my goodness. Not at all. Not at all. Well, thank
No,
you
I'm just
so
very,
much.
very excited for you.
Oh,
And I feel
thank
like
you.
you've both birthed a professional pursuit and aspiration you've had, and now a new human to join the Your Place at the Top team. I'm just really, really excited for you, and
Thank you
can't wait
so
for all
much,
that's ahead.
Claire.
It's a beautiful, taxing, funny
Adventure.
journey. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I would love to be able to revisit this conversation like 6 months, a year from now. Um,
Not at all.
yeah, we're definitely going to do that and just talk through, how perspective shift, because I'm under no delusions that I kind of equate this to starting a business in a lot of ways. And like you have this beautiful ignorance in the beginning of like I could do this, like it, and you can. Like you absolutely can do it. But you probably wouldn't if you knew everything you were going to have to go through in order to do it. So I'm really like I'm so excited for how this is going to shape and change me as a human, going on this um, amazing vocational journey. It's going to change everything. And I can't even pretend to know that I know what that's going to look like 6 months to a year from now. So we definitely have to get back and have this conversation again.
Yeah, and I think like it changes everything, and yet I'd like to hope that I'm still like
You.
me,
Yeah.
right? Like there's sort of this beautiful part of motherhood where like yes, it changes all the cards in some ways, and you're still you. Though all the research of like fetal cells getting into your bloodstream, I always find fascinating. But
Oh my gosh. I know. I think
I
about that
think
all
if
the
you
time.
can, yeah,
Yeah.
if you can find a way to still do what you love and work it around your other new pursuits and new priorities,
Yeah.
that's what it's.
I love when you just said like the cards change, but it's still you holding the cards, right? Like it's like still you navigating all of this and um your core. I mean, I can't make it through a podcast without talking about unique value. Like that, like the
Yeah,
core of who you are is still there, just in a completely new and exciting way.
yeah.
But yeah, I completely hear you. Claire, thank you so much for joining us on this podcast today. I'm gonna hold us to kind of regrouping down the line. We can just kind of chat about this even more so. But I this was incredibly helpful for me, and I'm sure for a lot of women out there who are in similar positions right now. And I just thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thanks for joining me on today's episode. As always, if you're looking for coaching, support, or would like to submit a question, you can drop me an email at info@yourplaceatthetop.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, share, and leave a review so this podcast can find its way to other amazing listeners just like you.